Oh yeah, welcome to If I Had a Hammer. It's an old song, comes out of the 30s. It's a labor organizing song. It's been done through the ages by the likes of Pete Seeger, Johnny Cash, Betty Willis, Martha Reeves, and the Vandellas. But tonight I picked a newer version, this generation, today's world. Kick-ass rock and rollin', still singing the same old song, If I Had a Hammer. And the hammer is a tool. It can be used in a lot of different ways, and that's where I want to start my conversation monologue here tonight. Hopefully it'll be a conversation. Please invite you to call in and be part of the show. The hammer is a tool. It's a metaphor in this case in the song. It's talking about making changes. And in the trades, you use a hammer to take things apart. You use a hammer to put things together. Today's world, I don't think there's anybody out there that has not been severely impacted by the trends of the last 10, 20, 30 years. We've seen middle of the road people, 50% of the population actually losing ground, not just in the buying power of their dollars, but in the actual dollars they're receiving. It's going backwards. We've seen the top 1% going up 500-600%, the amount of money going into their hands. The top 5% going up 300%. Something is severely wrong, and there are a few of us that don't know it. Now, what to do about it, that's a different story. But what I want to talk about is the way we go about it. If we're divided, if we're separated racially, if we're separated Tea Party and Occupy, if we're separated Democrats and Republicans, I'll tell you the one area we're not separated in, and that's those of us who are being screwed over. Excuse the French, or German, or whatever. There's a reality. It is an absolute reality. The trends that have been going on have all but made what existed when I was a young one, a young adult, coming into the workforce, the American dream, the American promise of, work hard, play by the rules, and you will have a decent life. There was a time in this country when one hard-working income earner was able to make sufficient money to raise a multiple child family, to buy a home, to have a car that wasn't 20 years old, that wasn't in constant need of repair, running on the edge of breaking down, that allowed you time, gave you vacation, and you had savings that you could take a vacation. You were able to do things for your kids. Today's world is so diminished from what I grew up in. The American promise has all but disappeared, and it's turned into a nightmare. And then the worst of it is we allow ourselves, nobody does it to us, because we own our actions, we own our reactions. And if we're reacting to the silent dog whistles of code words and divisiveness and culture wars, if we as voters, whether they be Republicans, conservatives, Democrats, liberals, libertarians, if we allow ourselves to be divided into this group and that group and that group, instead of the 99% that's getting screwed over, then we've lost our individual battles. We have to come together in unity on some core things that have taken this country in a direction that allows us to get screwed over. We allow it by allowing ourselves to be divided. If we refused to demonize the other folks, if we refuse to play along with that game, then, and only then, do we have a chance to begin to kill that dragon of greediness and insane, obscene, destructive practices that are sending this country in the absolute opposite direction from anything reasonable, sane, anything that resembles the American dream that was there for so many of us, that has so turned into a nightmare. But if we allow ourselves to be divided, if we like the pit bull who's been tortured and abused, bite anything that comes close to us, but lick the hand because it gives us little scraps of leftovers that allows us to stay body and soul together, scraps off the table, and yet at the same time will beat us, torture us, and turn us into a way of life. If we allow ourselves to become mean pit bulls to each other, to play the divisiveness game, then we deserve everything we get. I mean, I say that harshly, and in fact, we don't, because we've got to wake each other up. We've got to call out and say, that's no longer acceptable. It's not okay. You know, the Tea Party is not the enemy of Occupy Richmond. The Republicans are not the enemy of the Democrats, nor are the Democrats wearing horns and got devil's tails. I mean, it has to stop somewhere. There was a time when I was a young man when, you know, there were respected Republicans and respected Democrats who were respected because of the stands they took, the principles they believed in, and more than anything else, how they conducted themselves. Disagree with me morning, noon, and night. Debate it, and in the public marketplace of opinions and ideas, the best, the strongest, the deepest, the clearest won out. Today, you can't see any of that for all the dust and storm clouds and fires and trashing. You can't get elected unless you're the most extreme and the most willing to play that game of turning everything that doesn't agree with you into some sort of horrendous demon that should be stomped down like vermin. I'll tell you what really set me off on this monologue. I'm hoping it's a monologue and not a rant. What really set me off, and my first reaction was my stomach started turning over. My stomach really just went, and it was just like I had to get control of myself. I was on the internet, and I ran across some posts. I'm sure that many of you heard about the woman who killed her children in the food stamp office. Yeah, it happened. She was so frustrated, so lost with the stuff that had, like a steamroller out on the highway, done roadkill, flattened her out till there was nothing left, and she went over the edge and killed her children. And what I saw that turned my stomach over was somebody posted, yeah, well, good for her, she's gone. It's a few less sucking my tax money. Now, I'm sorry, whatever your political viewpoint, that is beneath human dignity. That person, nobody changed that person into that subhuman reaction. That person chose that. That person allowed himself or herself to be so twisted and distorted, like the pit bull that's been tortured and maimed and poked and prodded, to where they just bit and snarled even at a woman who had killed her own kids. This is a wake-up call. This is really, seriously, a wake-up call. That is like so out there, so sad that that person allowed themselves to go to that space. I don't know what you think, but I'd love to have a conversation with some of the viewers out there tonight. So, moving on with the same topic, that current trend of divisiveness and demonizing, it makes a lot of money for somebody, not for me, not for you. It makes a lot of money for the media because the big media corporations. And again, the American promise, when I grew up, there was such a thing as the Federal Communications Commission who guarded and protected the public airwaves, holding them accountable for their actions, holding them accountable for community responsibility, holding the broadcasters' licenses up for constant renewal and citizen input and complaints, and they had to keep a file on citizen comments that came to them. All of that's gone. Now we went, in the space of just a couple years, with deregulation. Oh, deregulation, there's a good one. Deregulation. One more time. What did deregulation do for the public airwaves? Disappeared them. There is no public airwaves anymore. They're bought and sold and owned by less than 6 corporations, own 90% of the media outlets in the country. That's radio, television, and print. 6 corporations own 90%. It went from 1,900 and something, nearly 2,000 different radio station owners. Once deregulation was completed, 6 corporations own 95% of the radio stations in this country. Do you not think that that affects what we hear? What local news gets put out? What viewpoints are allowed? Not even to mention the sad state of music and what's allowed to be broadcast in music. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. We could talk about that for weeks. But control of the media and the agenda of that media is not to give us the clearest news, the best viewpoints, the most insights. It's to make it the most inflammatory, the most derogatory, the most sensational, the most outrageous, so that people tune in like we turn our heads at the side of the road trying to see that 5-car pile up on the side of the highway. I understand, it's human nature to be attracted to blood and fire, but there's more to humans than just blood and fire. Welcome to the show, caller.
Answer the fucking phone, Alan.
Hello.
Hey, Alan.
Hey, I just heard a little bit of FCC censored stuff, but this is public access. Come on, guys. How you doing tonight? Okay, you got a time delay. You got to turn the volume down.
This is JC.
Hey, JC, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, I was just wondering what you had going on and what, if anything, y'all was trying to do. Can you turn down the TV?
That's what you got to do. You got to turn that TV down. There you go.
All right, thanks, brother. Hey, the thing is, I was wondering what was going on at across from the mayor's house.
Well, there's still a camp out there. This weekend's a big weekend. We got people coming in from 15, 20 cities all around the East Coast and some farther than that. Tomorrow's going to be a day-long series of activities. It's 9 o'clock. There's a bunch of folks getting on city buses with literature and their heads in their hearts full of Occupy and going to talk with bus riders. And then at noon at Monroe Park, there's going to be a rally. And then after that rally ends, the people are going to move through the streets and catch this. They're going to clean up trash as we go. Can you imagine all the dirty hippies that smell and don't take baths and never go to work actually picking up litter on the streets? I mean,
I can imagine.
You know what I'm saying? You know,
yeah,
the broad paintbrush that people want to get other people to believe to divide us. I didn't meet one dirty hippie down at Kanawha. Did you?
No.
I met some hippies, but not dirty.
No, definitely not dirty. Hey,
But the rest of the day tomorrow is that at 2 o'clock at Kanawha, there's going to be a bunch of workshops and speakers and music and a lot of stuff happening for the afternoon down at Kanawha. And then it moves through the rest of the day. There'll be stuff happening late into the day and on Sunday too. But I don't have all those details. Anybody who wants to know the full details and's got access to a computer, you can check it out at the website, which is occupyrichmondva.org, or at Facebook, Occupy Richmond, the one that's got 9,000 and some likes on it.
I wanted to know what you thought about what the press has said that Occupy needs to stop saying that they are close to the Tea Party and and they have, and Occupy is really violent, which I didn't see no violence going on with Occupy down at Canal Plaza.
Well, the media likes to make money, and one of the ways they make money is by making stories out of part truth and part this and part that, and they turn it into something else that's really vile and ugly and self-serving. And I say self-serving in the sense that people want to turn in and watch and see, oh my God, they're doing what? And then they stir people up with misinformation and half-truths. The reality is that Occupy and Occupy Anything and Tea Party Anything, formally as organizations, are on different sides of the street. But just like two sides of the street, there's a yellow line down the middle. And out in that middle area, there are a lot of things that we agree in. If corporations have bought and sold the politicians, if corporations own the media, if corporations and political corruption is the problem, and we both know that, it seems to me wise, let's come together and the dragon. Let's take the dragon down, and then we'll sit there on our two sides of the street and have a very loud but civil disagreement, debate, and put our viewpoints out. I don't think that the response to the Ku Klux Klan coming to town is to turn them away at the city line. I say bring them down to Canal Plaza, let them stand out there, and we turn out 10,000 people come down and turn our backs in disgust at them.
Yeah.
America is stronger because people debate, and what we can't debate if we're going to buy into that's the devil, that's the demon, they're evil, they're this, they're that, because they're standing over on their side of the street, some of them, and saying, oh, they're dirty hippies and they shit in the park and they're blah, 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 blah. And it's just like bam, bam, bam. No, we don't have to shake hands and hug and kumbaya. I'll never kumbaya with the Tea Party agenda, nor will Occupy. But as an occupier, I will talk to a Tea Partier, and that's what's happening. But the media is not playing that. They're playing the sensationalist, distorted, twisted viewpoint that, because they want people to tune in and make money for their corporate masters.
Yeah. See, the thing is, I was running security down there, helping out with security down there, and a lot of the stuff that they said happened did not happen, and I just wanted to get that straight. None of the violence that they said happened down there ever happened, and that was totally misrepresented by the press.
Well, the press, and then, even if it did happen somewhere, everybody gets painted with it. Every Occupy is, and every this. Just as I know Tea Partiers who are kind-hearted and caring and decent people who just differ with me on some opinions on how to go about it. But what do they get painted with? Oh, they're birthers and they hate Obama and every black person is an N-word and it's not fair to them, and it's not fair to Occupy to allow the media to keep twisting the facts and the realities into something that sells, and gets them ratings. It's obscene and it has to stop. And for me, it stops right here with me. And I know you well enough to know that you're not going to buy into that kind of stuff either.
Oh, but of course not.
When I look at you in the eyes, and we talked about this downtown, when I look at you in the eyes, I see, and when I look at how your hands move and what they take on, and I look where your feet carry you and how you engage and the kind of things you do, that tells me who you are, not the color of your skin or the cut of your clothes. So with the Tea Partier, I'm going to do the same thing. If you show me that you're something that I object to, if you show me how you conduct yourself is racist, if you show me that, it's those things, not the fact that you're in the Tea Party. We cannot allow that to separate us any longer, because that's how divided we fall. Just a real big bug on me, and I'm especially big on it right now because there is this big hoorah that the media is stirring up, and there's some overreaction, I'm sure, both within the hardcore Tea Party and the serious, deeply sober, passionate Occupy people. It's kind of what?
Hey, all right, Alan. I'm going to let you go, man. Thanks.
You going to be down at the activities tomorrow?
Oh, but of course.
All right. Say hi to folks. Who's with you?
Oh, Linda's with me.
Hey, Linda.
Oh, she wants to say hello.
Sure.
Hey, Alan.
How you doing, Linda?
I'm doing pretty good, and you?
I'm doing as good as I can and a little bit better.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Did you get any luck on getting your Social Security straightened out?
Not yet. I'm still waiting.
Have you gotten any help?
No.
No. Oh, my Lord, you got to find a way to get a hold of me. You guys got a phone number?
Well, right now we're at the motel.
Okay.
And yes, we do have a phone here.
Okay, can you call back when you get off the air and leave your phone number with the operator here? Because I want to get in touch with you guys and see if I can't get you some help with some free legal help. Because unfortunately, the way government operates, whether it's giving out a license to the Tea Party that should never be given out or trying to get your Social Security benefits, in today's world, everybody needs help getting it straight. And I'll see what I can do to help you.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Talk to you later.
Be well.
All right.
So those were a couple folks that I met from the homeless community, and I'm glad to hear that they're in a motel at the moment because it is getting mighty cold out these nights. Canal Plaza was an amazing experience because we had everything from people who had been homeless and living in that park, Canal Plaza, for decades, to the recently arrived homeless who just became roadkill to the newest crashes and economic declines. The original indigenous population, as they called themselves, were early casualties that preceded structural blockades and just missteps. I mean, sometimes it's as simple, you end up there from something as simple as, uh-oh, I've got this disease. I lose my job because I can't work because of my health. I can't pay my doctor bills. I can't even pay for rent. And blam, you're homeless. And the range of people that showed up down at Canal Plaza ran through university professors who are adjunct professors who have doctorates that allows them to earn as an adjunct professor at VCU less than a McDonald's manager with no degree, just good at getting a job done. Something's gone wrong. The American dream, the American promise is turned into a nightmare. And anybody who wants to separate us, Democrat from Republican, liberal from conservative, Tea Party from Occupy, is playing us one against the other. Divided, we will fall. Our country was founded. My ancestors helped write the documents. In my family tree, half the family went to Canada, half stayed here and wrote the documents. Some stayed with the king and left for Canada, which didn't rebel. And some stayed and fought for their principles and said, tyranny no more. Unfortunately, there wasn't an avenue at that point that was found that allowed it to be done without blood and fire and death and destruction to all parties. Whenever you have to resort to violence, to war, to fighting and spilling blood, it sometimes appears the only choice. And maybe sometimes it is, but for me, I won't stop trying other than that. There are those in this country right now who are ready, willing to go to violence again. The good news, the inspiration of our founders is that they set in motion a self-correcting mechanism that allows us real avenues, seriously real avenues that aren't always available especially in other countries. We have the ballot box, and I know a lot of people are turned off, and some people don't just not show up at the voting booth, but consciously decide that the system is rigged. Oh, and it is rigged, and that it's not worthwhile. I say it's all the more worthwhile when it's rigged, because damn it, our responsibility as a citizen is not just to show up on voting day. Our responsibility as a citizen is to be constantly vigilant, to avoid the traps, to avoid the snares that are thrown out to distract us and divide us and send us off course, to get our eye off the ball. There is a dragon loose in this land, the dragon of greed and corruption. And that's where we need to keep our eye, not on who's going to help us take them down, or whether that person is worthy to stand beside me in taking down this dragon of greed and corruption that has so twisted the original vision of our founders. I'm sorry. Anybody who wants to help take down the dragon, come on down. Let's get at it. Because that's what has to stop. And in order to do that, it's all hands on deck. Everybody take your best shot. You know, more stones for the slingshots. We don't have nuclear weapons, and I'm glad we don't. But we have our heads, we have our eyes to see what's going on right in our faces. We're not sponges. You know, sponges have the same elements of the universe composing their physical structure. Why are we different than sponges? We have awareness, or not. We have the right to choose to be aware and awakened, or not. That's something that doesn't exist in the animal kingdom. That's something that doesn't exist in the plant kingdom, in the sea life. We have consciousness and awareness, and we can choose to be awake, aware, and focused, and to refuse to allow ourselves to be distracted, to refuse to allow ourselves to be so beaten down, going back to my earlier statement, like the pit bull, that we snarl at anything that shows up in our sights, and yet at the same time do nothing about the abuser, about the dragons of greed and corruption and vile. And then, like scraps from the dinner table, we get little bits and pieces while they take the whole steak for themselves. I'm sorry. That'll always happen if we stay distracted. But the amazing thing is that they may just have set in motion, like a snowball going downhill, something that has not existed before. And that is the reality, the truth, that 99% of us have been, are still being, and will continue to be absolutely screwed over. Now, I know there are plenty of people out there that are far, far, far up the economic food chain. But I know that they've still been whacked. Their property values are underwater. Their IRAs and retirement accounts are half of it disappeared. Their investments are chopped in half. Their businesses, their incomes. Now, are they hurting like Linda and BJ? No, they're not homeless. But a couple weeks ago, I was working for a woman, and she got a phone call late in the afternoon from a friend of hers. And she just kind of gasped in shock and sat down in the chair and started consoling whoever was on the other end of the phone. And it was really, quite startling. I mean, I was concerned. I thought, what happened to her friend? She got off the phone and she just looked at me and she said, "That was my friend. He's worked for 40 years for a national corporation as mid-level manager. And they called him to the coffee room after lunch, bought him a cup of coffee, and then told him, go to HR and pick up your last paycheck and some cardboard boxes to pack your office today. Roadkill. Now, is he in the same category as someone who ends up homeless, roadkill? No, but roadkill nonetheless. Don't think that his life isn't turned upside down, though he probably still has it better than me, and he certainly has it better than. But the unfairness, the greed, the lack of any sense of dignity being allowed to any worker, buy you a cup of coffee and tell you to go get your last check, and cardboard boxes to pack and be gone that day. I'm sorry, I grew up with more dignity than that. I demand more dignity than that for myself, and I give more dignity than that to everybody I meet. 2-week notice was something that both parties gave to each other. No more, not modern business. And the corporations, they're now people. Corporations are people. I'm sorry, take a group of kindergartners and give them flashcards and show them pictures of real people and show them a picture of a corporation, and those kindergartners are going to figure it out. There is right now an amendment to take away corporate personhood, been introduced by Bernie Sanders, the socialist, from a senator from Vermont, for a constitutional amendment to eliminate, to wipe out corporate personhood. Hello, caller. How you doing tonight?
Okay, I have a question for you.
Sure.
You remember when they used to have the steel plant in Pittsburgh?
Mm-hmm.
Where did the steel plants go after they shut down?
Good question. See, I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and Buffalo was one of the big steel towns. The steel throughout the Great Lakes, because of the Great Lakes, you know, they were able to carry both coal and ore on the great big freighters on the Great Lakes. And there was a time when the steel worker population in Buffalo was close to 300,000 people. Do you know what it's down to now?
What is
15,000. 15,000. That's the American promise. It's disappeared.
Right.
You know, where did they go? The corporations, they decided, you know what? We don't particularly get enough money for ourselves, so why should we pay steel workers union wages in Pittsburgh and Buffalo and Duluth and throughout the upper Rust Belt now area, the production heart of our country, when we can get Chinese workers over there working for 10 cents a day to do the same thing. We can buy and sell and distribute product. Doesn't matter where it's bought, but it does matter where it's made, because they've destroyed the income and the American promise in chasing their greedy dollars for themselves. They've taken all their. There's no less steel being made, and I don't have any problem with competition. But, you know, it wasn't the labor unions that destroyed the auto industry, although Fox News and a lot of other people will try and convince, and many people actually buy it, hook, line, and sinker, and believe it. Did you ever hear of a labor union who decided to make cars that nobody wanted to buy? I think auto executives made that decision.
Right.
And then after they went kerflunky, and as they were on their way going to kerflunky up and belly up with, roadkill in the marketplace, then all the way up to the top, and they wanted to keep on doing it, except for the bailout. Actually, in this case, mandated major cuts and limits on CEO salaries, but right up to the time when they were crashing the whole thing, they just kept taking more and more money and pointing the fingers at the blood-sucking unions that have screwed the American auto industry. How people believe it, I don't know. But like the abused pit bull that snarls at everybody except the one that's abusing it, I think there's something to that.
From what I see now, with the movement that the young people have going on across the country,
yeah,
it's pretty close to the people overseas. People don't see it now, but it's getting close to that.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that the movement that they have is pretty close to the riding in the streets.
Oh, I'm hoping.
And that type of thing.
Well, I'm hoping, one of the things, I don't know how much of the news you've watched, but in city after city, in way too many cities, not everywhere, but in a whole lot of them, the violent, brutal, vicious way that the police have responded to protesters, and in not one case that I know of has there been a riot in return.
Right.
They have sat there and allowed themselves to be pepper gassed. They have sat there and allowed themselves to be beaten. They have sat there and allowed themselves to have their wrists twisted and broken. They have allowed themselves, and they have not. And I have not heard of one single Occupy anywhere that has said, enough is enough, we're going to violence.
Right.
It isn't happening, and I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of that. But
And
one
I
thing,
know they're fighting for a cause,
yeah,
and I hope they, come across and make their point.
Well, I would tell you, I don't know if you heard my earlier announcement, but downtown tomorrow at Kanawha Plaza, where we had our camp,
Right.
at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's going to be a rally and speakers. There's people coming from all over the Mid-Atlantic, from other occupiers. It's a day of solidarity, and your heart would be bursting with joy if you came down there tomorrow and met some of the folks. And I encourage all the listeners, if you want to know what's going on, come down and see with your own eyes and feel it with your own heart, because it'll change you.
Right.
It's not what they're telling you in the news.
And getting back to the point that you was making about people firing people on the job,
Yeah,
that's pretty close to a divorce of a marriage.
yeah,
I mean, it's pretty much it's right up there with it.
yeah.
I
yeah.
mean, once you lose that, you lose your insurance. Everything goes at the same time. They don't give a rat's tail about you.
It's like the dominoes. The first one goes and everything else goes click, 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 click. And,
Right.
but that's the way, that's where profits are lying. Cut it quick, ditch them when we don't need them, use them and drive them and tell them they got to be more productive all the while. I'm sad to see it's that way, but I'm really encouraged, with what I've experienced with Occupy, and I encourage everybody to come on down and meet people and find out what it's really about.
Okay, I thank you for your...
Thanks so much for calling. Good to talk to you. Okay, we got another caller, I think. We still got him? Oh, here it comes. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
I just like to say that what's the guy was on TV, the CEO of a company, and $1 billion was taken, and he don't know what happened to it.
Oh, yeah. It was Senator...
Yeah, I mean, man, let me tell you something. Let me tell you, these CEOs need to go to jail. I mean, what? I mean,
No. You're so wrong. We have to put all these occupiers in jail because they're going to ruin our country.
Oh, please. I mean, it's
Not one for 1 minute has gone to behind
It's
bars.
a pimp in a suit. I never will forget Dr. King said that any religion that's concerned with the souls of men and is not concerned with the economic condition is a dry dust religion, and it has come true today.
Yeah. And you know what? The religion is greed.
Yes, that's what it is.
That's a religion is greed. And it's a dragon that's roaming through our national landscape and burning and raping and looting and pillaging. It's like these guys, the big companies that go into the mountains of Virginia and West Virginia, and they take beautiful landscape that just makes your mouth drop open and your eyes get big and your heart open up when you look at the beauty of nature and the power of it, and they come in there and scoop off the top of the mountains and rip out all the wealth from down in there and screw the locals over and then leave it like scraps to the pit bull afterwards.
I'm from West Virginia. My hometown, Fairmont, West Virginia, is a ghost town.
Yeah.
I went back home and it was like walking around like dead people, man.
They're doing the same thing to the economy. It's they're coming in and scooping off the top, taking all the wealth, and then there's crumbs and shreds, and on top of it, what we have now today, I mean, there's crumbs and shreds were bad enough, but we've got an economic landscape that is devastated with toxic waste, ruined the future generation, is that the American promise? An economic wasteland? I don't think that's what our founders had in mind.
Yeah, let me just say this, and I'm going to get off here. When I came from Vietnam, man, we had the GI Bill. I went to college and then graduate school. I did not realize, I look at my niece and her girlfriend's going to VCU.
Yeah.
Man, it is they have to pay so much money. I mean, when I went to school in the 70s, they were just giving out money. I mean, it would be hard for me to go to school now.
Well, I mean, I got student loans, but I also worked my way through school. I had a job. Catch this. I had a job in 1968 that was paying me $15 an hour, a construction job with a union label on it.
Oh, that was big money back
That was big money. I was able to pay for my college by working summers. Now there are students that are working all year round, 3 jobs and going to school to keep out of debt. That's not the American dream.
That's not right.
That's not right. Thanks so much for calling. Yeah, I mean, it's the greedy dragons have done us all a favor. They have awakened all of the 99%, whether they realize it yet or not. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Hey, buddy. How you doing? I haven't seen you for a long time.
Well, we just got back on the air.
I remember when you used to have this show back in 95 and 96.
Oh, yeah.
I used to have a show down there called Proverbs of Patriots. Do you remember me?
What's your first name?
The heavyset guy, Steve.
Steve, yeah. Okay.
The painter.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen you for a long time, man. It's good
Been
to
busy.
see you. Looking
Been busy.
so good.
Well, my beard's a little grayer. It's not as white as it used to
I talked
be.
to you, you had a job down on Grove Avenue.
Yep.
And things are going pretty good with you, and I'm glad to see you doing all right.
Well, I'm doing all right. The good news is that I don't have 5 mouths to feed and 5 children to be the breadwinner for and providing the finances for. So my needs are very changed, and changed just before the crash. And so I went from restorations, renovations, and repairs to
You remember me?
repairs, etc. I mean, I'll rake
You remember
lawns.
me?
Yeah, yep. But
Yeah.
times have changed, and they've changed for the worse. If we had talked back then, do you think either one of us could have imagined it would have gotten this bad?
No, I couldn't have imagined.
And then the worst of it, I mean, I don't know all of your ideology or your viewpoints, and it doesn't particularly matter because I know that what's happened in this world has impacted on you, and I know that if we talk about it, no matter what kind of different ideologies we have, we're going to find that place at the middle of the road where we're in agreement that this has to change. And then after that, we can go back to the opposite sides of the street and discuss and
Let
debate.
me ask you this. What do you think about the debt being up to $15 trillion? Don't you think that's really absurd?
Of course it is. But, when Ronald Reagan was in, I mean, I thought, oh, my God, this man has amassed more debt than all other presidents throughout the entire history of our country. We'll never get out of it. And what happened during Clinton's 2 terms, we turned it into a surplus. And what happened then in George Bush's 2 terms, he turned it into 10 times worse.
I think that was because Reagan lightened up on the business people, and it spurred the economy, and more money was made. As far as taxable income.
No.
That brought more money into the treasury.
Oh, no. Reagan ran up the debt amazingly, set in motion deregulation.
Let me tell you this. I think what Obama's done running up the debt is really bad. And what Bush did was bad because he ran it up too. So neither one of them are right. And so I'm against all of it.
Well, I think that we need to go in a different...
Does that make me a Ron Pauler? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't like the labels. I don't like the labels. I like to kick the ideas around. But one thing I do know is that preceding Reagan, going into my early years, the first president I can remember, and I was in grade school at the time, was Eisenhower. And it followed Eisenhower.
You're a little older than me because the first president I remember actually was Kennedy.
So Kennedy followed after Eisenhower. And that was a time when the American promise held some reality. And under Eisenhower, we didn't have this everything goes to the top and it's going to trickle down. I'm sorry, our history should have taught us that that wasn't a particularly good idea. I mean, does anybody remember the Rockefellers and the Mellon Carnegies and the robber barons and the Tiffany's, corruption scandals from the history books?
Put it this way.
When you let the big hands...
I'm conservative, but I definitely don't like Rockefeller Republicans.
I can understand that, but the reality is that if you simply allow the big boys to do whatever they want without limit, this is what we get. And the debt, I don't see that there was any other choice, than to pile some more on in the short term. But as a long term, and I don't think if Obama's in for a second term, you're going to see that debt continue to go in the way that it is.
I hope not.
And the reason why is the awakening that's happening across the political spectrum, that this system is broke. The call for a constitutional convention to ban corporate personhood, to take politics and money out of the obscene embrace that they're in, and the corruption and the complete undermining of anything from the founders' vision.
I don't think corporations should be required to pay any taxes. And I'll tell you why, because a corporation is owned by its stockholders. And there should be stronger laws requiring corporations to pay dividends. And when those dividends are paid to the stockholders should have to pay taxes
I like
on
that.
those dividends.
See, I thought I was going to have an argument with you. That is sweet.
I don't believe in double taxation. I don't think you should tax a corporation.
That is
and
sweet.
Take their money, and then require
Let's
them
start
to pay
talking
the
to some
dividend.
stockholders.
And then
Yep,
then
put the
tax
money into the people's
stockholders
hands.
again. I think that's bullshit.
Well,
You know?
there's other things that conceptually.
You follow what I'm saying there?
Yeah, absolutely. There's other things that conceptually are attractive to me, like the flat tax. There's different nooks and crannies of it, but that you pay on what you spend and what you buy. Those kind of things, because the guy who's buying a $1 million yacht, paying a sales tax on it, is getting a chunk of it sent into the revenue flow for the needs of everybody. The person who's able to buy a $2.98 toy boat at Kmart for their kids is going to pay taxes on his boat too. And they're going to pay equally and fairly according to their means. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you, man.
It's just like, if I've got capacity to buy $1 million yacht, I've got capacity to throw my fair share into the government's pot. And anybody who says that there's something unfair about that, I just don't get. It comes back to my analogy I made earlier, that those of us who are abused, and all of us are in some way by this crazy system and the direction it's going, we would rather snarl and fight and bite at each other than to all turn around at the same time and go after the that's abusing us. That's where we got to stop doing it.
I got to go.
Be well.
Take it easy. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, good to hear from you.
God bless.
All right,
Bye.
Peace. So, God, from the days gone by, we got about 10 minutes left. If you've been out there watching and haven't called in yet tonight, I'd love to hear from you. I will fill the airtime. Trust me. Anybody who's watched this show long enough knows that I am more than capable of filling the airtime. But I love to hear your viewpoints and your ideas. Something I said tonight rings a bell, makes any sense. If you agree, if you disagree. If you want to snarl and bite, you're going to get hung up on. I'd like to go back to the announcements I made earlier. Canal Plaza, well, starting tomorrow, Occupy Richmond is going to be holding a early morning, ride the buses, meet people, talk about Occupy, tell them what's going on, invite them into the process. So if you're riding a city bus tomorrow, keep your eyes open. That's at 9 o'clock. At noon at Monroe Park, down on near the VCU campus. There's going to be a rally, and then they'll be heading out downtown and on the way picking up trash, cleaning the city streets, and getting the trash out of Richmond. And then at 2 o'clock down at Canal Plaza, which is downtown at 7th, 8th, and Canal, somewhere along there. It's a big modern-looking, civic plaza downtown, under the shadow of all the corporate skyscrapers, the perfect location. Come on out, meet people. If you've been wondering, what are they really about? What do they really want? What? Don't believe what you see in the news. Don't believe what you see in the newspapers. Come out, find out, experience for yourself. I trust that anybody that comes down there, curious, even if you think you might not like what you see. I've seen a video posted by a right-wing blogger, Tea Partier, ultra-conservative, who went down there expecting to find dirt and filth and vermin, and he was shocked by what he met and what he saw. And he did a video on it that is just about as perfectly capturing what the reality was. Find out for yourselves. Come on down to Canal Plaza tomorrow in the afternoon, 2 o'clock at Canal Plaza. That's going to be the big rally with speakers, events, activities, soapbox. A whole lot of going on down at the site of the Occupy camp that was torn down by the city. Don't let them take away your voice. Don't let them scare you away. Find out for yourself. Don't believe what you hear in the media. Of course, I'm on the media right now, so believe me. No. Don't believe me. Go down and find out for yourself. That's the whole point of it. Don't believe it because I say it. Go down and see with your own eyes. Feel it with your own heart. You'll know. You'll know what you see. You'll know what you experience. And nobody can take that away. And no blabber on TV can tell you anything that you won't know better by going and experiencing. Again, if you're out there, you've got a few minutes left, you want to throw something into the comments tonight, I'd love to hear from you. But it's been an amazing week. A lot of things happened. The caller was talking about the CEO who went before Congress and testified that he didn't know what happened to $1.2 billion that disappeared from a commodities future betting parlor. He didn't know. He didn't know what happened to the 1.2. It was on the books at one point, and then the whole thing crashed, and somehow it wasn't on the books. And not one bankster, not one corporate CEO, not one anybody involved with all this has spent 1 minute behind bars, and yet peaceful, dissenting, Occupy protesters are beaten, brutalized, attacked, and even when they take us away politely and civilly, they still put us behind bars. I spent a night in city jail, leaving Canal Plaza the night the city tore down and trashed tens of thousands of dollars of Occupy personal and collective equipment, the only property destruction in Richmond. Go figure. They're there to serve and protect and public safety and order, and yet the city itself was the only cause of property destruction. Doesn't make sense to me. It reminds me of the Vietnam era. Oh, we had to destroy the village in order to save it. There's something that was lost. An opportunity that our city government really blew it on. Could have done it very differently. There's still opportunities ahead. Up and coming will be an ordinance going to city council to create a free speech zone. And watch and see what happens. Get involved. Call your city council person. Watch next week's show. We'll talk a lot about it next week because we're going to go on holiday break and y'all need to know what's going on. But watch how your city council person does or doesn't get involved in helping to pass something that really will serve the whole of Richmond and be a bright shining light to show other cities how free speech can be done and how it makes us stronger, or they can simply block and object on narrow, petty disagreements. Watch your city council. Pay attention. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how you doing? This is Sonia on behalf of Occupy the Hood Richmond. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Just wanted to call in and give a shout out to everybody for doing a great job with the Occupy movement.
Okay. So what have you been up to with Occupy these days? Are you still doing video work?
Yes, we're doing a lot of video work. We're going to be going back out into the communities and interviewing more people to get their input on different things that we can do to contribute to our communities. One thing that we want to do a little bit differently, because, you know, for a while we had a lot of protesting going on, but we figured we'd take another shot at it by going a different route. So what we're doing is actually seeing what the people need and seeing what we can do to help people and actually help them help themselves.
Okay.
So that's our goal.
So where for viewers who are watching the show tonight, where can they find your videos?
If you go on Facebook, you can find us in Occupy the Hood Richmond, and also on YouTube at Wizinity, that's WIZINTY 27. And also Jason Brown at flyfantasy.net. You can find videos there as well, or you can contact us there at that website.
Okay. A suggestion, because I know that other groups have kind of done the same thing. You know, they started out posting this and that, you know, under the different producers' names and this and that. And so what you can do is you can combine all your stuff and create an Occupy the Hood Richmond, Virginia YouTube channel where you post it all out. It's real easy. Yeah, you need to head that way because, you know, man. But I think if people go to the YouTube and do a search under Occupy the Hood Richmond, Virginia, that'll pull it up. But y'all can help people to find you if you go to and create a Occupy the Hood channel for Richmond, Virginia.
And that's a great idea, and I think Jason is actually listening to the show now, so hopefully he'll get on that.
one more thing, because there also is on this channel a huge robot that fills up with 29-minute DVDs of material that's half empty and running on super cycles, short cycles. Plenty of space for video material in 29-minute DVDs brought to the station here. They're desperate for it, and y'all need to get your message out.
Yes, we do, and I think that's excellent. I mean, thanks for that information, because that's something we didn't know. Well, at least I didn't know about. I don't know if Jason knew, but
it's got to be 29 minutes, boom, tight and clean. Make it happen. We're running out of time here, but thanks so much for calling. Right. I'm glad we got a chance to cover some of the Occupy the Hood stuff.
Thank you.
Let's catch up soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. So that's it. Let's finish with some music. I'm tired of talking. And that go to cut 2. Oh, back with the rock and roll.